for a project titled Parkview Townhomes. The project site is an approximately 4.9 acre parcel located in the northern portion of the city, situated just east of the Interstate 15 and north of El Norte Parkway, as shown on this slide. The property is addressed as 550 West El Norte Parkway, and the site is currently developed with a single-family residence with detached garage. Surrounding uses include existing mobile homes to the south across El Norte Parkway, Rod McLeod Park directly to the north, low-intensity office and commercial uses, as well as low-density residential to the east, and a vacant parcel to the west. Beyond those immediate surrounding uses, just east of the project site are higher-density residential developments, most noticeably at the southeast corner of El Norte and Iris Lane, and also immediately across Iris Lane to the east. The project site the project is a request for several entitlements as shown on this slide. A number of them require a certain order in order to facilitate the project, the development project that is before part of this request. So the first entitlement is a general plan amendment, which would change the land use designation of the existing parcel from specific planning area 13 to urban 4, that's a typo, which permits for 24 dwelling units per acre. A zoning map amendment in order to bring consistency to the proposed general plan designation. So this would be a change from commercial professional to R4 residential, which is medium family, high density multifamily. A tentative subdivision map and condominium permit to subdivide airspace of the 70 proposed townhome units. A request for a grading exemption in order to construct fill slopes up to 40 feet in height within the first 50 feet of the property line. It would also facilitate cut slopes in excess of 20 feet and cut slopes steeper than a 2-to-1 ratio. The requests also entail an administrative adjustment, which would allow for a slight reduction in the rear yard setback for one single building proposed as part of the project. And then a major plot plan, which we use to memorialize the site development, and a design review permit for the design component of the residential development. The project site is, as I noted, within the Imperial Oaks Corporate Center specific planning area, known as specific planning area 13, as shown on this slide, and is zoned professional commercial, which permits for a range of low-intensity commercial uses. The property is developed with an existing single-family dwelling, which is considered a legal non-conforming use and is subject to development restrictions as outlined in Article 61 of the Zoning Code. As detailed in the Planning Commission staff report, the project includes a general plan amendment to remove the project site from the specific plan area and designate the land use to urban 4, which would permit up to 24 dwelling units per acre. As required by state law, a zone map amendment is also proposed to change the parcel from the commercial professional to the residential zoning designation of R-4-24, which is consistent with the proposed general plan request of urban 4. The applicant requests this change due to the changing social, economic, and physical landscape affecting land development. As discussed in the staff report, specific planning area 13 is envisioned as an employment center with high-paying jobs. However, to this day, the city has not received a comprehensive detailed plan for development of a project that is consistent with the goals and policies of SPA 13. Due to this, the applicant requests a general plan amendment to facilitate the development of units. Staff reviewed the request through the development review process and determined that the proposed project would assist the city in achieving its regional housing needs numbers and would further expand opportunities for home ownership. As detailed in Attachment 4, the project complies with the quality of life standards detailed in the adopted general plan and general plan policies. Following the general plan amendment and zone change, the applicant requests to demolish the existing single-family residence and driveway that currently leads to the site in order to facilitate development of a 70-unit townhome project. This project includes a subdivision map to create the condominium units that would be eligible to be sold at a future time. A new access driveway would be constructed at the southeastern corner of the parcel and would provide circulation through the project site. As detailed in the requested entitlement table of the staff report, the project also includes an administrative adjustment to reduce the rear yard setback for the second and third story of Unit 1, which is shown on this slide in the yellow oval. Based on the design of the site and the surrounding developments, staff determined the requested reduction in the rear yard setback specifically only for this one building via that administrative adjustment process would not be detrimental to surrounding property owners. A total of 150 off-street parking spaces are required, and the applicant proposes 165 with 18 guest spaces located toward the rear of the site. Pedestrian access to the site would be provided along West El Norte Parkway via a ramp. On-site circulation would be provided throughout the site by 24-foot wide drive aisles proposed as private streets to be maintained by the Future Homeowners Association. Each drive aisle would provide access to the proposed garages for each unit. The project consists of 12 buildings proposed at 3 stories and up to 36 feet in height. Consistent with the requirements of the proposed zone, the proposed residential buildings vary in orientation throughout the site with a mixture of different lateral orientations to create varied building planes throughout. The proposed primary exterior material for the project consists of stucco with a sand finish and various accents. As discussed in the Planning Commission staff report, the project is a height differential of 65 feet as you move from north to south. The applicant requests a grading exemption to construct fill slopes up to 40 feet in height and cut slopes designed at a 1.5 to 1 ratio that are up to 22 feet in height at the rear of the site. Notwithstanding these grading exemptions, the project has been designed in a manner that is consistent with Article 55 through the incorporation of buffering, benching, and following the natural contours of the site. Additionally, the slopes will be extensively landscaped, as shown in the Planning Commission staff report. The project requires 35,600 square feet of open space and proposes roughly 51,000 square feet, consisting of landscaping, recreational areas, and walkways throughout the site. A total of 124 trees are proposed, and the slopes are heavily landscaped to lessen the visual impact by those manufactured slopes requesting grading exemptions. Generally, the project complies with the requirements of Article 62 as it pertains to water usage, number of trees, parking lot plantings, and street tree requirements. Additionally, as you can see here, amenities are proposed as part of the project, including a pool and spa area as well as a tot lot, and pedestrian connectivity is a part of the proposed project located at the rear of the site for residents of the future development to access the public park to the north. This slide here illustrates the proposed primary exterior materials for the project, and all of the buildings would orient toward internal drive aisles that provide access to the individual garages, as noted. An initial study and mitigated negative declaration was circulated for public review from October 9th through November 10th, and the city received a total of 3 comments. 2 were from state agencies, and 1 was from a resident in the adjacent mobile home park. Responses to those comments were included in the draft initial study mitigated neg dec, which is attached as Exhibit G to the resolution. Based on the results of the technical studies, there would be impacts to biological resources, cultural resources, noise, transportation, and tribal cultural resources. However, with the incorporation of mitigation measures, all project impacts would be reduced to a less than significant level. The mitigation measures range from purchasing of credits to monitoring agreements for tribal cultural resources, as well as off-site improvements related to high visibility crosswalks and that pedestrian connectivity at the rear of the site to the adjacent public park. The project was noticed in accordance with state law, which requires a 20-day notice period instead of the typical 15 and 10-day notices required by the zoning code. As of the date of the staff report's publication, city staff had not received any public comments on the project pertaining to the public hearing component. As previously stated, comments were received during the public review process of the environmental document, and those comments were responded to as a part of the environmental review process. Based on the analysis contained in the staff report, city staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2026-01, recommending that the City Council approve the project. That concludes staff's presentation, and myself and the applicant's team are available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Before we go any further, I wanted to make sure that I asked if there were any disclosures being any communications with anybody outside this body regarding the project, but also if you had gone to the site or done anything else beyond reviewing what was in the staff report. So asking for any disclosures. All right, the only disclosure that I have is that I did drive by the site and go through the park just so I had a feel for the project. At this point, moving on, any questions for staff? Vice Chair Spear.
Thank you. I just have one question. The rear yard setback for the one particular unit that is being modified or requested to have modification, could you share what criteria was considered to arrive at the staff's finding?
Yes. Article 61 of the Escondido zoning code permits for administrative adjustments of up to 25% of the rear yard setback, as well as, of any setback, inclusive of the rear yard setback. And those findings or those requirements are stipulated within Article 61, and they pertain to public health and safety concerns related to surrounding properties.
In particular, which concerns were looked at? Are we talking about fire concerns, or which ones in particular were reviewed in coming up with that?
One moment.
Sure.
The standard or threshold for administrative adjustments is that if it's going to be detrimental to surrounding properties. As part of the development review process, the staff development committee, which consists of our building division, our engineering, land development engineering, utilities engineering, our fire department, our planning division, our traffic engineering section, all review the proposed project. Based on the reduced setback, it is reviewed against California Building Code, California Fire Code, and has to comply with all of those standards, even when requesting a reduction in the rear yard. So based on that review, that reduction, according to those standards, has been met for concerns of fire, building code, separation distances, et cetera.
Okay. I guess what I'm wondering, maybe it's a difficult question, but in reviewing that, certainly there's some criteria, as you expressed, to afford a 25% reduction. In the review, though, I'm curious if we can know what do they look like? What do they look at to say, okay, let's take a close look at this and make sure this particular property is not going to be a problem do we know in detail what they look at so that we can have a comfort level that, oh yeah, this is typically, if you're going to reduce the rear yard setback, we're concerned about fire skipping from roof to roof. So we've looked at that component and we feel satisfied that based on the materials or whatever, in this case, we're good. Do we have detail on what that particular case might be in this instance?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think part of the discussion here would have been that, it being the park property is the adjacent property and its potential for development. You basically, the area adjacent right here is roadway, and it's really doesn't have development potential the way it's configured. So I would guess that would be a big part of the consideration, but primarily that would have been building and fire, I believe.
Okay, so typically it'd be a fire issue in terms of reducing the setback. They looked at the use and the potential use of the adjacent property and said, yeah, this doesn't look like a concern in this case.
Yes, so specifically for this project, just with the project planner out ill, he is unable to speak to specifically what he reviewed for, but
Okay.
typically, I can give you a typical use case. As Owen said, it's absolutely looking at the adjacent properties and the uses and existing development patterns that are surrounding. To Owen's point, it is the public park adjacent to, and the site is set under grade-wise from that parcel above. The reduced setback is a part of the proposed project scope of work. So all of those reviewing divisions and departments do assess for that reduced setback. So when the planning staff who administer the recommendation on the administrative adjustment are making a determination in totality, they take the feedback of whether the fire department has any concerns with that distance of setback proposed, whether the building division has any concerns regarding separation distances, whether the engineering division has any concerns regarding water or runoff or anything of that nature. So all of that is taken into account by the project planner when coming to a determination on whether to recommend approval of an administrative adjustment.
Okay. So they're looking specifically at that item when they review it and
That is
putting
correct.
all their noodles into that as they review it. Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Commissioner Jester.
Thank you, Veronica, for it's a great presentation. So just for clarification purposes, it's the planning department that does the administrative, makes the decision on that based upon the department's input? Just thinking about the mechanism here.
Sure. So technically, an administrative adjustment on its own is at the discretion of the Director of Development Services. So it would not be made by staff, it would be made by the decision maker who's identified in the municipal code as the Director of Development Services. And so similar to any development review process, the proposed scope of work would come in, a reduction in a required yard, whatever that may be, up to 25%. So it's not always a request fully of 25%. That is routed to all those divisions and departments I mentioned earlier, engineering, various engineering groups, fire, building, et cetera. And everyone analyzes the proposed reduced yard based on whatever the scope of the project design is. In this case, this building is built up to that reduced setback. And so that is what is looked at and analyzed by all of those respective work groups. And that information is funneled back to the project planner because an administrative adjustment is a permit through the planning division. So planners here at the city project manage that. And they would culminate all of that information into a recommendation to the director. Because this administrative adjustment is tied to a scope of work that includes legislative entitlements that have to go to city council, everything has to go up.
That's what I thought. Thank you. One other question. Is the applicant Touchstone Communities the owner of the parcel?
I would defer to the applicant simply because I have not been the project planner on this, and he may have a better response to that if the applicant would like to answer that question.
Before we get to that part, for applicant to ask questions. I want to make sure we finish up with staff first, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the applicant. If you can kind of hold that question till then.
If I may, just the applicant, when they submitted the application, has to have property owner authorization. So if they are not the property owner, they would have had to submit proof that the property owner agreed to their submittal.
I guess that's what I'm getting at. Who is requesting the zoning change? And-
That would be Touchstone Communities.
Okay, but that sole decision should be by the property owner, I would imagine, right?
They may have authorization from the property owner if they are not the property owner, which they will clarify when they come up.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? I don't have any questions. Just for clarification, the administrative adjustment is only for that one unit on the second floor of 11 inches, correct?
It's for the second and third stories of that one building.
Oh, because I was looking on here and it looked like the proposed setback for the third story was 11 feet, which meets the 10-foot. But regardless, we're talking about a
You are
foot.
correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the rest of the commission realized that it's only about a foot, and there's no residence on the other side of that particular portion of the building. With that, I don't have any other questions. Any other questions of staff? Does the applicant wish to provide a presentation? No presentation. If we can go with Commissioner Jester's question, would you like to have the applicant answer your question?
I would.
Mr. Garza, if you'd like to come on up.
Is it on? Kerry Garza, Touchstone Communities. Commissioner Jester, we're the applicant. I own Touchstone Communities, and the owner of the land is here, the Bell family. And so in typical developments we do, a lot of times we work hand in hand with the landowner until we get the entitlements, and then we'll close escrow on the property once upon we get the approval. So, and that's the case here. And so we have full knowledge of the property owner of anything we're requesting, and we keep them in the loop because they're great landowners and great partners for us to process this project through, and they're anxious to see their heritage property be developed. It's been a long time. Their family built the house there. They've owned it for decades, and so it's a great cooperative relationship.
Okay. Is the landowner this woman back here? Hi.
Yes, yes.
And you're in agreement with everything moving forward with these entitlements, is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
If you want me to address the setback issue, I could. Like Chair Weiler said, it's a corner of one building was about a foot into the setback based upon as we went through design review and working with the city. The project gets pushed around a little bit with different grades and street grades and things, and it ended up kicking one corner of the building off a little bit. And since it's a corner right pointing toward the park, we all sat and agreed that we would do this administrative adjustment.
To me, like that was a high point on the flow line of to the sewer out to West El Norte, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the high point of the project
Uh-huh.
right there.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? The only other question I have is these units are intended to be sold, not rented.
Yes,
Okay,
they're for sale.
terrific.
I have one question, actually. I'm a little curious. Mr. Garza, what kind of price point, what are you targeting here? For the
Well,
like the 2 to 3 bedroom?
Yeah, these are the typical 3-story townhomes that all home builders are doing in every city around the state. It's a very attractive product for kind of first-time buyers and middle-income buyers, and policemen, firemen, teachers, they can afford these kind of units in general. The pricing of these would probably be in the low 600,000s to maybe slightly over 700,000, based upon the comps that are going on similar around town. We did a similar project to this on South Center City Parkway called Eclipse. Same product.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll move on to oral communications. Any speakers?
Yes, we received 2 speaker slips from Suzanne Moses and Ed Moses.
Okay, thank you. If I can have you each come up to the podium, go ahead and call the first speaker. And if I can remind you, you've got 3 minutes to go ahead and make your comments.
Ed Moses.
Hello, Commissioners. I am Ed Moses. I live at 525 West El Norte Parkway, which is the driveway almost exactly opposite of the proposed driveway for this project. There are 245 residences in the Rancho Escondido Senior Park. We're all seniors, which has probably some impact because of diminished capacity over time in terms of making decisions on getting onto El Norte Parkway. At best, it's difficult now. Sometimes in the later afternoon, say 4 to 5:30, you might have to wait through 3 signals to be able to get onto El Norte Parkway. That's now. The number that was given was 165 parking spaces for the proposed development. Add 165 cars to that intersection, and I foresee a huge problem. There have been accidents at our driveway, recently, and some of the problems are it's a 40 mile an hour zone through there. If people see a green light, they're going 40 miles an hour. If you stick your nose out, well, we're sorry. It will become more difficult. I would like to see in this plan what sort of traffic control will be developed and installed as a part of the plan to ease the burden on the residents of the Rancho Escondido Senior Mobile Home Park, and also make it possible for the residents of the new Parkview townhomes to be able to safely access El Norte Parkway. Thank you.
Thank you. And the other speaker?
Suzanne Moses.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is my first time at this podium, so I'm a little at a loss in that I didn't know I would actually be speaking. But I speak on behalf of the 243 homeowners that are across the street who have 1 lane egress from the park onto Valley Parkway, El Norte Parkway, excuse me. Just speaking about tonight on our way here, it wasn't 4 to 5:30, it's almost 7 o'clock. As we were trying to leave our park, the way onto El Norte Parkway, you have to turn immediately right, and if you're going to go on to I-15, you have to move into the center lane, and then you have to move into the immediate adjacent lane, which is the turn lane, to make your left, your U-turn to go all the way back to get on 5. You have 5 signals now, and it's really just a stone's throw to get on to 15, excuse me. So this evening, as we were coming the opposite direction toward this meeting, right in front of our egress street is already the turning lane for those doing the U-turn to go back to get on the freeway. That was all full. If you add additional cars for people, say, that are going down to the shopping center or that are coming into homes, 70 homes or whatever, you're going to have even more back up there. Fortunately, we were able to get onto the street, but had we been trying to turn to go onto the freeway, we would not have been able to immediately go. We would have been backed up within our park. And I really just see a congestion there. I was wishing I had a map. I see your diagram, but I'm wondering if the egress from that development is in the southwest corner. Does that mean it's at the small point there right at El Norte Parkway? And what kind of traffic control would be at that location? Because that really basically is this area that I'm talking about is being so congested. So I really need more information. I'm just concerned that we're creating a problem, and there have been accidents there. Seniors have slower reaction time. Sometimes they have hearing and vision problems. So you may be setting up a situation that really you're not anticipating by thinking about just what's within the development and not how the development is going to affect all of the homeowners right across the street. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers who wish to come up?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and close public testimony. And do we have any other questions of staff at this point?
Yeah, I think the Moses has brought up a good point. I can't tell from the plans, and I didn't study them, but is there a plan for mitigating traffic? Lights, deceleration lanes, that kind of thing? I don't know. I'm sure a traffic study would have revealed that, right, Owen?
Yeah, I don't know if it was so much identified in the traffic study, but the project, the project's sole driveway at its easterly corner there will have a left turn pocket dedicated to it. So eastbound traffic will be able to, leave the traffic pattern and queue and be able to turn left into the project. They are conditioned to modify that the median there to prevent lefts out. So you're not going to have residents of the new project coming out and going, and I would say interfering with the traffic movement that was described to us just now. Anybody wanting to go eastbound out of the project will go down to Seven Oaks, do a U-turn there, and join the traffic.
I see.
So likewise, the mobile home park across the street, they too, I think, have a dedicated little left turn pocket. But they cannot, like I said, they have to go and do a U-turn if they were to want to go east or west on El Norte. You would have them, Iris would be the first place to do that. You could probably go up to the shopping center, and I think you can do a left U-turn there as well. So I don't see this project aggravating the situation described because their residents are going to come out and be prevented from turning left and joining the traffic that they're talking about here directly. They're going to have to go down and do a U-turn if they want to go eastbound.
Does that help?
Not really. It's very hard to hear you.
Sorry.
Would you mind if we approach the after just to find out exactly how it is?
I have a question.
Yeah, I'm available.
Yeah, that wouldn't occur during this hearing, but certainly if you wanted to speak with staff, between after this hearing and before it goes to city council, I'm sure staff would be willing to kind of walk you through the review and the analysis that was conducted from a traffic standpoint. Yeah, and you know what, you can talk to staff after this hearing. We've already closed public testimony, so at this point, we're kind of in our deliberations. But please do reach out to staff, and they'll help you get a better understanding before this goes to city council.
Yeah, I'd like to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Commissioner Stevie?
I just want to weigh in on that for a second as you're going through this deliberation. So I drive by this site probably 3 times a week. Iris is my kind of main thoroughfare to get to my home. And the other night, actually, it was probably 5 o'clock, and the left turn onto Iris was backed up past El Norte, past the entrance to this park, and up the road toward Lourdes, which should be in your marketing. That Mexican food restaurant, fantastic. But anyway, that's beside the point. There was a resident trying to make a left turn off of El Norte into the park, and they had to kind of navigate between myself and the car behind me, and almost got hit by a car in the second lane, in the furthest right lane, that was going 45 plus miles an hour down El Norte. So it is a gnarly intersection, and I see what you're saying about the envisioned left turn lane for this project. I would encourage city to maybe make that queue long, because you've already got other cars queuing up, and I could see that turning into like I said, kind of a hairy situation. And then as you're kind of thinking about this, this area, whatever the city can do to help sort of mitigate that would be, helpful. I don't know if that's like a signal timing issue, or I don't know if maybe we need to sort of just reimagine that whole left turn lane in general. I don't know what that is, but it is a difficult section.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of it is that on major roads, typically you wouldn't have this many left turns allowed, but you had existing, uses. The mobile home park's been there for many, many years. So I was involved in the early 90s when we widened El Norte Parkway through here. And, so we did provide these left turn pockets, but they really are tough because of their proximities, so the mobile home park's left turn little pocket is so close to Iris, it limits Iris's left turn. Iris now gets a lot more traffic than it probably did in the 90s. And I think if we were probably looking at this now, we would probably have not, we would have given a longer pocket to Iris and taken away the pocket to the mobile home park. So it's always that kind of a balance when you're dealing with a major road. And at peak hour, yeah, you can get a little bit of, overload on these tiny pockets that we have here because of the proximity of Iris to the mobile home park's entrance here. So I think with the new project, they're farther away from Iris, and they are taking their access in the same direction. I think we can lengthen that pocket to make sure it doesn't, stack out into through lanes, but. Yeah, the condition that we have there at Iris is challenging.
Mr. Tunnell, if I could ask this question. The land use designation is changing from a commercial designation to a residential designation, and the project is, 14 units per acre. If we were to compare the traffic that would be generated by this particular project and a standard commercial type of development with a similar configuration, as far as, the pad that's sitting up at the top. And I know you wouldn't have, I wouldn't think that you would have this analysis already done, but if you had to, based on your years and looking at engineering and traffic, would you take a guess that the traffic generated by this project would be less than a commercial project of the same size? Or is that too hard of a leap?
Yeah, I kind of, I paused to hazard that analysis on the fly here. Yeah, I don't know what type of commercial could have been put here, and a size, or so I really can't say. I think what the trip generation would be. Typically residential had a greater AM/PM type peak hours than commercial. It was typically spread out more. But that's definitely changing these days. We see, midday is getting bigger and peak hours are getting smaller. So that kind of analysis wasn't done here, and so
Okay, I can appreciate that. Any other comments? Discussion?
Just real quick,
Commissioner.
I think you made it clear that people coming out of this driveway are turning right. That's all they're doing is turning right. So they're not crossing the street and creating that issue. And the same's true on the other side. They're not crossing the street either. They're turning right and making a U-turn as well. Correct. So with that set aside, it was looked at in terms of the traffic impact to the area. That was reviewed, and that was found to be not an issue.
Yeah, the segment works, operates well. That segment of El Norte operates well. I think you just have a kind of a non-signalized, it's kind of a, it's a driveway too close to a signalized intersection. And so the pockets for both are not as big as they probably should be. So, speaking of the existing condition that's out there, not the projects.
Right.
Because I think they can kind of uncouple and have the pocket they need.
I did want to comment on just a couple of items on this. So I really like this project. I feel like the need for sale entry-level homes is acute in Escondido, and we've seen, the studies that say that, but this is exactly the kind of place that, I'm 41, a number of my peers are still trying to get into their first home, and certainly the generation, immediately behind me, this is exactly the kind of thing they would be looking at. I love the design of this project. I feel like it fits really nicely with the Citricado complex next door, with the adjacent, hotels and all that right there on El Norte and the 15. Like the whole thing just visually stands out. I really love that someone in city staff thought about the integration with McLeod Park. That's really important, and I would love to see more people, use that park. It's a nice park up on the hill, great place to fly a kite with kids. And so just this whole thing, I feel like Mr. Garza and his team did a great job pulling this together, and I'm very excited about this. I do think the city should think, we should give some thought to maybe making that intersection on Iris a little safer. I don't think that really impacts this specific project, although, like I said, I would encourage a little bit of a longer queue because, in the evening, that part of El Norte does get, Iris is, that whole Iris thing, I think, needs to be thought about maybe a little differently. And I don't know what that means for you, Mr. Tunnel, but, we're talking about some, and it was included in this packet, some pretty big projects coming up in this zone, right? The Jehovah's Witness project, I think, what's that, Community Hallmark or something like that, that's doing their project across the street from Meadowbrook, and kind of, there are a number of things coming down the pipe. And so, Iris, I think, is only going to become more busy. But I think seeing these kinds of developments in North Escondido, really fantastic. So I like it a lot. I will miss the signs you guys put in your yard. Thank you for doing that. They're always really fantastic.
Other comments from Planning Commission? Any other discussion? Yeah, I want to make one comment as well. I agree with Commissioner Stevie. I think that for sale product is a very important part of what Escondido needs, and especially at the entry level price point. This could have been a big, giant apartment complex. If you go by the density that would be permitted on this particular piece of property, commercial, office, those sort of things, I don't think it would fit because of the topography at this location. So I think this is a great alternative, especially coming in with the townhome product. One of the things that I was concerned about, and I was real happy to see that it was within one of the VMT mitigation measures, was a connection point from this development right to the park. So I think that was a real important part of making sure that these residents in the future, they have easy access to that park. That park is a nice park that is probably well underutilized. But yeah, it's a nice park, and with that connection, I suspect that all of these folks up there will be utilizing it. So I like the project. I think it's a good utilization of this piece of property. Any other comments? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Jester,
Second.
second by Commissioner Stevie. Thank you. If we can get the vote.
Motion to approve resolution number 2026-01. Chair Weiler,
Yes.
Vice Chair Spear,
Yes.
Commissioner Jester,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevie,
Yes.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Yes.
The vote is 5-0 to approve resolution number 2026-01.
All right. Thank you. Good luck up at City Council. Moving on to the next item here, current business. Doesn't look like we have anything. Future agenda items. Does any commissioner wish to bring something forward to the commission? Seeing none. Any other oral communications?
No.
None. Planning Commissioners report. Anybody have anything to report upon? Seeing none. I only wanted to make one observation, actually. On my way here this evening, I come from the west side of town, and I'll usually, every time I come over to City Hall, I try and drive down Grand. And it was nice to see that there were a lot of vehicles there. There were people walking along the sidewalks, enjoying the downtown, the lighting that's been placed there. I think a couple of strands were out. Well, those have been repaired, so now it's all the strand lighting is fully lit up. So I wanted to thank staff who, is keeping an eye out for that, and all the planning that went forward on that to make Grand a much more inviting place to come down and visit and enjoy their time there. So I just wanted to make that comment. Moving on, City Planners report.
Yes, thank you. We, at this moment, anticipate a January 27th meeting, but I will follow up with you all very shortly on whether that actually is going to come to fruition. If it does not, then we will see you in February. We do anticipate a plan development permit coming before the commission in the next meeting or so. So we will have forthcoming meetings.
All right, thank you. One final comment. Congratulations to the city planner, is now the new Assistant Community Development Director. So congratulations. That's all I have. Anybody else have any other comments? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.